Hi, I'm Robbie Byrne, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the Colonial Americas with the Golden Age of Piracy. So, most people are talking about early colonial Americas. They'll go, oh, the Spanish conquistadors, or the Pilgrims, or Jamestown, or something along that line. But I think pirates are kind of left out of the historical conversation too much. They're very, common in pop culture, but the period from 1650 to 1726, which kind of most historians line up as the Golden Age of Piracy, really had a critical impact on the colonial Americas. So in the mid 17th century or the 1600s, Western Europe began to focus more on colonialism as the wars of religion were starting to wind down in Europe. And with piracy, this kind of really starts to kick up in 1655 when England takes over Jamaica from Spain. And they begin building up the city of Port Royal. Now, nearby, in just north of Haiti, there's a city called Tortuga, which is a safe haven, basically. It's where all these pirates have lived. They've been there since, believe, 1625-ish, kind of just very small in size. But the English take advantage of this and start propping them up and saying, hey, come use Port Royal as kind of base of operations, come in trade and everything. And you just got to go keep raiding Spanish ships, and we won't say anything. You can just come here, trade your goods. Where'd you get that? Who cares? And so because of this, Port Royal ends up becoming a very large port city. By 1690, it is a booming port town, and one of the primary reasons for that is all the piracy in the region that helped it grow. And this method was so popular that the French started doing it, and by 1690, these pirates were so prevalent that it's not just the Caribbean you see this in. It goes so far where pirates are up the coast of America, and all the way, even there are pirates in the Indian Ocean fighting Spanish galleons that some of them were just originated from Tortuga. So piracy was booming by 1690. And also, you get the 13 colonies heavily involved. Virginia got involved pretty soon after Port Royal did, and they primarily used pirates to get involved with the illicit slave trade. It was a lot cheaper to get slaves from pirates than it was to get them from the Spanish, who still had a lot of control over the slave trade at the time. And so from the 1680 to 1710s, you see a lot of the 13 colonies using pirates as a primary means for trade because the illicit trade network is much more profitable and easier for them than going through official channels through European nations. And two states in particular, or colonies at the time, were very infamous for that, and it would be Pennsylvania and New York. Pennsylvania colonial governor William Markham would purposely hide and help pirates in and out of Philadelphia to help boost the Pennsylvania economy. And it was even worse in New York, where New York Governor Benjamin Fletcher had personal trading partnerships and friendships with pirates. Most famously, Thomas Tew. There's even a famous drawing of them together. They became very good friends. Tew was known as the Pirate of Rhode Island. And eventually, Parliament actually removed Fletcher from office because of their relationship. So you get this continuing boom, and then finally by 1700, you get the last period of the Golden Age of Piracy, which is known as the Jolly Roger period. And this is because this is when pirates begin using the famed skull and crossbone flags, which are just called Jolly Rogers. So during the War of Spanish Succession, which kind of ranged from 1701 to 1713, European nations like to use privateers, which is basically just government-sanctioned pirates, to help combat enemy nations. And England was very prevalent with this, especially in the New World, using privateers to fight for them against the Spanish. Well, as the war is winding down, you have this issue where all these privateers don't want to stop, so they become illegal pirates. And after the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, you see most European nations start to lean heavily towards anti-piracy stances. This era, though, is probably also the most famous and cultural phenomenon. Obviously, this is when you have Edward Teach, also known as Blackbeard. He was probably the most feared. Even at the time, Captain Charles Johnson, who was the primary, I guess, historian on pirates at the time, he wrote the General History of Pirates in 1726, described Blackbeard as the scariest pirate he knew, and he's where we get the famous details of his description with the lit fuses in his beard and everything. And he actually, a lot of people just think Blackbeard, must have been in the Caribbean. He was actually very prominent in the Carolinas. That's where he did, especially in his later years, that's where he did a lot of his ratings. And he was actually killed by the British Navy coming out of the Virginia ports. So he was very prevalent in the colonies. And to kind of wrap this up, I think pirates are remembered a lot for these violent and glory moments, but they've also left a cultural mark with their love of freedom. One of the most successful pirates in this Jolly Roger period was Bartholomew Roberts, who had his own famous pirate codes of conduct. And the first code was every man has a vote in affairs of moment, has equal title to fresh provisions, strong liquors at any time seized, and use them at pleasure. So this idea of voting and division among the crew were all very revolutionary ideas. And a lot of this actually was very influential later on American revolutionary figures. Thomas Paine was actually a privateer himself, and in Common Sense, he even talked a little bit about the difference between the colonial view and the English view on piracy. And Patrick Henry's famous "Give me liberty or give me death," some historians contest that it's actually a flip on the famous pirate motto, "Damnation seize my soul if I give you quarters or take anything from you." So pirates were, ironically, first of many to kind of set out these Enlightenment ideas involving freedom and democratic Republican kind of government. So I think from tool of war to illicit traders, swashbucklers of the sea, men of freedom, pirates really have a bigger mark on the colonial Americas than we give them credit for.